Greetings, Southold. I'm Ann Camignon with Sabrina Basil. Here today we are joined by congressional candidate Mr. Perry Gershon out of the 1st District of New York. Thank you for joining us here today.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so to start off, I'd like to ask a few questions about who you are as an individual. So where are you from and how'd you get yourself to where you are today?
I'm from East Hampton right now. I grew up in New York City, and I have been all over. I was in New York, I was in California at Berkeley for a while, and I've been in East Hampton since 1999, full-time.
Now, you call yourself a businessman rather than a politician. How do you think being a businessman impacts your views on government?
I think it's important that we have people with different kinds of backgrounds in government. In government, the country is all a melting pot. So if everybody has just been an elected official, they don't have the perspective of how the private sector works. And similarly, if you're only a private sector person, you don't have an idea of how public sector works. So having the mix of people together, I think, is the best way to move forward. I've run businesses, so I have a sense as to what it takes to go from startup to operation to making things successful for different parties and marrying different interests. I think it's harder when you're in government, only in government, to see the big picture.
Right, so being a businessman definitely or having that outlook rather, provides some advantages versus, and also probably some disadvantages. Do you think there are any big ones that it offers, like disadvantage or advantage-wise, rather than being a traditional politician?
I think for me, in this race in particular, having and given the current political environment, having been in business and worked to bring parties together, I was a commercial real estate lender. So I negotiated loans between my bank and the person who was looking to borrow money. And we came up with solutions that would work well for people, with the idea that if this deal worked well, they'd come back and want to do more business. And I think that model fits well into the government. Right now we have a government that's become very tribal. Democrats say we want to do it our way. Republicans say we want to do it our way, and they fight. And I think having a business approach from the type of business I come from is a good way to try to bring people back together.
Thank you.
Okay, so you've said that one of your main priorities will be working to create higher quality and higher paying jobs here in Suffolk County. How will you go about doing this?
Well, there are different ways to do it. The basis of my thought process is that Suffolk County developed around a manufacturing industry in Grumman. And when they left, the higher paying jobs that went left too. We've moved to more of a service-oriented economy. And I think if we could bring bigger manufacturing jobs and newer employers back here, we'd all be better off. The biggest impediment is infrastructure. We don't have good highways. We're crumbling. Our transportation system is terrible. We all know that. We've been saying it for decades. But there's a push to invest in a federal infrastructure program, sort of like what we did in the 50s with the interstate highway system. And if we could do that and make a national investment, our fair share in Suffolk County would be a real boost for economic development. And then we have idea generators like Stony Brook and Suffolk Community College and Brookhaven National Lab, where new businesses could start up, and in a more competitive atmosphere, they could really take root here.
Okay, and gun violence seems to be an increasing and ongoing problem in schools today. What do you feel is the root of this increasing gun violence, and what are some ideas to prevent it?
The root of the violence is hard to say. I think part of the root of the violence is that we keep having repeated incidents. Yeah. We had Columbine years ago, we had Sandy Hook, and we had Parkland, and they were national tragedies, and we didn't do anything about it. So without action, someone doesn't think the deterrent. So what could we do? I mean, we could have universal background checks without any loopholes, so that people will be more restricted. People who shouldn't have a gun will be more restricted in their access to it. And we have some of that in New York State right now, but we need to do it nationally so people can't bring guns across state lines. We can make sure teachers don't have guns. We can limit the concealed carry of weapons across state lines. Lots of little steps to take.
Yeah.
Now, circling back actually to the question about gun violence, so how would you suggest the most effective way of getting any kind of sort of legislation through Congress in the future? Like what would you suggest to help?
The most important thing to do is to elect leaders who aren't puppets of the gun lobby. In this election, I'm running against Lee Zeldin. Lee Zeldin takes more money from the gun manufacturers than anybody else in the New York State House delegation and than almost anyone else in Congress. So when you want to pass a law that's going to restrict gun access, his funders tell him, don't vote for that. When you have a candidate like myself who doesn't take any money from the gun lobby, it's easier to have me represent the people's interest.
Thank you. And also, an integral part of your campaign has seemed to be healthcare for all. Why do you feel affordable healthcare is so important? How do you plan on protecting affordable healthcare for everyone?
So affordable healthcare is a right. And my whole central theme is that healthcare is a right. It's not a privilege. We've come a long way in the positive with Obamacare, the ACA, in that people who had pre-existing conditions, which could be diabetes, which could be a heart problem, it could be a woman who's given birth with a C-section, can't be discriminated against in buying their health care coverage. So it's been an equalizer. So we need to protect that. We need to reduce costs under the ACA, and we do that by making everybody buy into the system. If you have more people participating, then the overall cost comes down. We should be allowing Medicare to negotiate with drug companies to reduce prescription drug costs. And that's something that Trump even ran on. So I think there's a bipartisan consensus to do it. And then Medicare for all is really based on the idea of if we give people universal coverage, they'll get their health care sooner. They won't wait till they're really, really sick and go to the emergency room. And emergency room care is the most expensive way to deliver health care. So if we can reduce the number of people in the emergency room, the overall cost of care goes down. And you can look at Canada and Western Europe as models for where these systems work.
Now, you mentioned how you need, in order to get your healthcare program to work, you need everyone to buy into it. What sort of incentives do you think you could help provide to get maybe someone who's not necessarily sold on the idea of this program, like to adopt it and actually?
By buy-in, you mean government people to buy in or people to buy
in
the
general, the public?
I think you need to tell people that it's a part of your civic responsibility is purchasing health care. And you pay your taxes. Everybody does it. You register your car. You should be getting a health care plan. And if everybody does it, the cost comes down.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so not only do you feel affordable healthcare is important, but you have strong beliefs in protecting women's healthcare, such as things like Planned Parenthood. How will you go about protecting women's healthcare?
Well, I think we need to make sure we continue to fund it and make it available. And right now, over 70% of women on Long Island get their health care through Planned Parenthood one way or another. So it's a critical part of our society. Planned Parenthood should be receiving funds from the government. Cutting off funding to women's health care at Planned Parenthood hurts women, period. I mean, we just need to elect politicians who understand that. It's a very, very popular program. People want access to Planned Parenthood. And I think that's the major theme there.
Yeah.
Okay. So actually, sort of on a related note, obviously recently we saw the confirmation of Justice Kavanaugh, and we might see the possible overturning of Roe v. Wade and other Supreme Court hearings. Collectively, what do you think this sort of atmosphere we have around healthcare and just people in general has to do, like, means for the nation?
Well, two things. Healthcare is a real important issue for people throughout the country. It's probably the biggest rallying cry on these elections are healthcare policy. And you can look, both my TV commercials and Lee Zeldin's deal with healthcare. So people obviously are focused on it. The Supreme Court is more of a setback for women's health care and women's rights to choose what to do with their own body. I think one of the big fears of Kavanaugh is that he might look to overturn Roe versus Wade. Kavanaugh has a lifetime appointment. So the way we combat that, if you want to preserve the right to choose, is to elect leaders like myself who are in favor of a woman's right to choose and not vote for people who oppose it, like Zeldin.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so along with those concerns about healthcare, you also have chosen the environment as one of your biggest battles. How will you go about preserving the environment?
So Long Islanders care so much about the environment. We're surrounded by water. We drink water. We rely on an aquifer to provide our drinking water. So we have to keep it clean. We need to stop poisoning it. We poison it with nitrogen runoff. So the way you treat that is you develop sewer systems where they're high population density, and there are areas that are approved for federal sewer money, but it's just not flowing. And then you need to have clean septic and encourage homeowners to put them in, and nitrogen treatment centers. All of this needs a combination of state, federal, and community efforts. And we have the state and we have the localities working on water quality throughout Long Island, but we need federal money to back it up if we're going to get it done on a timely basis. And historically, the federal government paid 75% of the cost of these water projects. And right now that's reduced, and we need to bring that money back up. That's one way to protect the environment. Then we have climate change, which is a bigger factor overall. Our coasts are rising. We can see that. We have extreme weather, and we need to take steps to combat, at least slow down, if not eliminate, climate change. So you do that with renewable energy, getting less carbon-based technology. Instead of promoting oil and natural gas, we should be promoting wind and solar.
Yeah.
Every house that's built here should now have a solar panel. It's crazy not to. If we care about the environment like we say we do, we shouldn't be building without solar.
Okay, thank you for that. I just want to finally round back to sort of a final question. What was the moment that made you decide you wanted to run for office?
That's a great question. I'm 56. I never thought I would run for office. And when Donald Trump got elected, I thought he was a symbol of Americans losing faith in their political representation. And I felt very strongly that our country's values were impacted. And the only thing I could do other than sit on the couch and throw things at the television set was take action. And I investigated what action I could take. And I was talking actually to Senator Kirsten Gillibrand. And she said, if you really want to do something for the resistance, go run for office. And I looked at my wife and said, I'm going to challenge Lee Zeldin. And there's a little light bulb went off in my head.
Wow. Well, that's a great story. Do you have any final thoughts or comments that you would like to share with the public before we're signing off today?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. The election's coming up about 10 days from when this video is going to show. And this is an important election because it's our chance to make a statement that we care about what's going on. And the most important thing you can do as a citizen in the country, if you're 18 years or older, is go out and vote. I don't care at the highest level if you vote for me or if you vote for Lee Zeldin or if you vote in the lower down ballot races, but go out and vote because that's your civic duty. If you do care and see a difference between me and Zeldin, go out and make that statement. And I am concerned about the direction the country is going in. I'm concerned about Donald Trump's vision of America and the way he's breaking down a lot of the norms that we're built on. And this is a chance to vote against that and to vote for better health care, for clean water to protect the environment, to protect a woman's right to choose, and to get guns out of our schools and to finally take a step for better gun safety laws in America. It's a black and white difference between me and Lee Zeldin. So this is your opportunity. Please go out and vote.
Well, once again, thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Gershon. It was a pleasure to meet with you, and I think your willingness to speak with a couple of high school students is a huge testament to your character. So for Soho TV News, I'm Annika Mignon, she's Sabrina Basil, and he is Perry Gershon. If you are eligible to vote this November, please do it. Thank you. Goodbye, America.
I'm honored. Thank you. We done?
I think so.